What is up, coaches, cheerleaders, and Warp Spawn? Remember, if you like what you see here, please like, share, sub, spread the love. These event coverage videos are what I love to do most, and they take a lot of time, so any support is appreciated. Vino Cup was held for the first time in Santa Clara, California in July of 2023. It was a one-day, three-round resurrection event with similar skill pack to a lot of the Western U.S. events. I drove about 3 hours from Reno to a hotel in Fairfield where I grabbed some teriyaki pork and pot stickers, ran a couple practice games against Skaven since I was playing Tomb Kings and I wanted to make sure the agility matchup was fresh on my mind. After crashing for the night and some bathroom selfies, I drove an extra hour to Outer Plains Comics and Games for the event. For starters, the store was huge and awesome. They had all sorts of gaming, comic, and nerd stuff with ample space to play. For the event, teams were divided into 3 tiers, with a team jumping up a tier if they took a star player. Lower tiers had more gold to buy players and skills with. The Highlander rule was in effect, meaning no repeat star players in a match. Skills were 20k or 40k apiece, with no more than 2 extra per player, and no more than 4 of any one particular skill given to a team. Inducements were limited, so it was very much aimed towards the teams themselves duking it out. The link to the skill pack will be in the description. The tournament used a custom weather chart designed to mirror the beautiful seasonal California weather, which, in the words of tournament organizer Dev, if it's not flooding, then everything's on fire. The swag bag for the event included a ball carrier token, a bribed goblin ref, which was a brute fun sculpt, and what are probably my favorite event dice I've gotten so far. Swirled green with the golden goblin enjoying some wine. I was digging all the goblin imagery in general. This event was sponsored by Crabomancer's Cauldron and Charlie Victor. The goblin and token were very cleanly printed and will require 0 cleaning or prep for me when I want to paint them. I encourage anyone watching to check out their store. The link will be in the description. Personally, I ordered some stuff as soon as I got back from the event. Across the 14 participants, there were no repeated teams at this event, which was really refreshing. I was piloting Tomb Kings. I'd say my roster was pretty straightforward, but getting to it was a bit of a head-scratcher. I had 2 rerolls, 1 blitzer with Mighty Blow, another with Guard, a thrower with Leader for a 3rd reroll, 2 block skeletons, 2 wrestle skeletons, 3 Tomb Guardians with Guard, and 1 Tomb Guardian with block and Mighty Blow. A lone vanilla skeleton made up my bench. I'll get deeper into my choices later.
Okay, so thank you all for coming. As you can tell from the shaky start, this is our first tournament. Morgan and I have kind of been trying to drive Blood Bowl interest in the area, and we thought a tournament might be a good way to do that. Looks like we have 14 players shown up so far. We may get a few latecomers, we'll see. But for now, I'm going to run pairings for the first round. I'm going to call out by team names, so listen out for your team names. We're probably all going to try and play in here and just leave the Pokemon players to Pokemon it up out here.
Once the round 1 pairings were up, everyone was excited to get to the action. There's a screen with all the pairings listed, which I always love. My first round opponent was Gus, coaching the Necromantics, a necromantic horror team. Sporting 2 rerolls, this roster had most of the positionals a player could want and leaned into the bash side of things for sure. 1 werewolf had block and tackle, the other having tackle and wrestle. Flesh golems both had block and guard. 2 wraiths had no extra skills, and the lone ghoul runner had block and sure hands. Rounding it all off were 4 zombies with no extra skills. Trading in a bench for extra skills made me think extra hard in our early drives, and I believe all of his skills came up during the course of the game. I received and managed to punch my way up through the middle, carefully marking off which pieces I needed to as I progressed, and letting the Tomb Guardians be the control pieces they should be. I wanted to try and set up a stall, but with the amount of pressure being applied to the ball, I ended up scoring on turn 5 to play it safe. I was able to fight back a strong flank, and the crowd made 2 important decisions. The ball needed to be in the middle of the field, and the goal should be KO'd to finish out the half. Leading into the second half, one of the werewolves became the new designated ball carrier. I'd had a few casualties against by this point, but it also made some regens. I kicked deep, and due to an early double skull, I managed to put some pressure on the wolves in the backfield. Our front lines traded blows for several turns. The wolves were able to kite and break loose, rushing up the side, but I was able to dislodge the ball, and we ran out of time with most of the game completed. Gus had managed an impressive 7 casualties on me, and I had only given a few back. Still feels wrong not playing for the bash, but I'm getting kind of used to it. His second opponent was Morgan, who was both integral to the running of the event and making it happen in the first place. He was piloting humans with a very utilitarian roster and some passing support, which tends to put me on edge and make me reconsider all of my positioning. He had 2 rerolls, a guard ogre, a halfling, a thrower with accurate and leader for the third reroll, 2 catchers with diving catch, 2 blitzers with guard, 2 blitzers with strip ball and tackle, and 3 block linemen to round it out. Going into the matchup, I knew I had the strength advantage and needed to press that as much as I could to control space. I wanted to take out that thrower if possible, and any bonus shots at the catchers were going to be gravy. Throughout the first quarter, I was able to press up the left side of the pitch, with an extra opportunity for breakthrough happening on turn 4 when his blitzer failed a rush to get my ball carrier, so I scored shortly after that. Over the last 2 turns in the half, he had ended up with 2 in the KO box and 1 casualty. He had dealt a considerable number of casualties back to me, but I managed to reach in 4 times, which kept me ahead on player account. The second half opened with a both down off his ogre, which put me in a good position to pressure the ball. I was able to bash my way through and steal another touchdown, which cemented the lead. By this point, things were lopsided enough that I managed a 3rd touchdown, which was a first for me piloting Tomb Kings. Overall, I managed to play a solid control bash game, but Nuffle wasn't doing Morgan any favors in the process either. My 3rd round, I was at the top table, and I was paired up against Joseph with the Aldorf Assassins, an Old World Alliance team. I learned early on since my comeback to Blood Bowl tournaments not to underestimate OWA in exhibition games. There was 1 reroll, a thrower with block and leader for a 2nd reroll, a human catcher with block and sidestep, human blitzer with guard and tackle, tree man with block and guard, troll slayer with mighty blow and juggernaut, 2 vanilla halflings, deeproot strong branch, and 3 vanilla human linemen. Choosing not to take dwarves or bench in favor of deeproot and some extra skills was an excellent choice in my opinion. This game felt like one giant turn to me. Once we got going, we were both thinking everything through, but playing at a very reasonable pace, and it felt very back and forth. I started off kicking to him while the trees covered the front line and started bashing away. I did my best to keep Deeproot covered, and I wanted to give the regular tree an excuse to activate every turn in hopes it would root. I got several regeneration rolls early, which helped a lot, and the armor breaks were on point. By the end of the first half and beginning of the second, I had scored several removals, which turned out to be huge. I was able to form a soft cage of a guard on either side of the ball carrier on kickoff, which I needed badly as he was able to invade my pitch a bit. From there, I was able to punch my way up the middle, and the regular tree rooted, meaning I wasn't going to move anyone next to it. Deeproot stayed tagged by a lineman for the remainder of the game. I was up players on the pitch, and despite some thrown halflings and a couple desperation blitzes, I managed to get 3/4 of the way up the pitch with a reroll intact versus his none. It was my turn 16 and it was down to the wire. I made a block, then had a clear shot at the end zone with 1 rush. I called it, and I rolled the die. Into a 1. I had 1 reroll left and slid the marker to 0 and rolled. Another 1. A fitting draw to a very close game. Joseph and I both noted how we didn't see any major tactical errors on either side. I hit that zone of when a game should be stressful, but you're having fun, so it creates this weird hybrid of pure competition, and it's a feeling that I absolutely love at tournaments. Next came the award ceremony.
So, how should I do this? Should I start with first or end with first?
You end with first.
You end with first. Okay. Alright, well in that case, let's start at the bottom with the wooden spoon. So, a recommendation that maybe they should...
Switch tables.
Brian? So, that comes in for brutal. 2 people actually scored the same number of injuries, which is 13 across 3 games. Pretty impressive. It is Eric with the Necromantics. Given that you like inflicting damage, it's a rip of liver. I'll do that in future. Most touchdowns is Ava, Marathi's Minions. So to
Scoring Dark Elves.
accelerate that touchdown scoring, we have Steven T.
Whoa! Oh, nice.
So I think everybody who played against him probably has a good sense of who best painted was, because it was a pretty impressive team. It was Tim's Amazon team.
I really don't think pictures can do this team justice. You kind of have to see it in person, but it was really well painted.
In second place, Joseph with the Old World Alliance.
Okay.
Which leaves first place, Steve Collis.
So, Joseph, congrats. How'd you do today?
Well, congrats to me, congrats to you.
Thank you.
I had 2 wins. My first 2 games I won, and my third game against you, we tied.
Yep. Yeah, that was definitely really close and brutal. But we tied our last game, and you also tied for the most casualties. So you're definitely doing something. What roster were you running today?
So today, for the first time on tabletop, I ran an Old World Alliance team, and with Deep Root Strong Branch.
Nice.
And that Dirty Player or Mighty Blow +2 was clutch. It was great.
Absolutely.
It's what in my second game allowed me to get 7 casualties. So I did not take all the dwarves with Logan.
Right.
So I took the Tree Man, I took Deep Root, so 2 trees, 2 halflings, Troll Slayer was the 1 dwarf, and then the human blitzer, human catcher, human thrower, and a few, 3 I think, human linemen to round it out.
Were there any of the skills that you added that you felt like really stood out?
I thought putting Juggernaut and Mighty Blow on the Troll Slayer was really fun, though the Juggernaut didn't come into play very often. I think that adding Block and Guard to the Tree Man was beautiful and totally worth it. As far as the other skills, I mean, having a Dodge Block Sidestep Catcher with Move 8 is just dirty and awesome. And my thrower having Block and Leader, I think that the skills that I chose, I think, were appropriate for the team.
Absolutely, yeah. I almost took block on my thrower too, but I was trying to spread out the Mighty Blow just a little bit. But no, that was cool. So if somebody's trying to get into the hobby, or maybe they want to start coming to tabletop tournaments, if maybe they're a little intimidated, do you have any advice for them?
Well, first of all, the Blood Bowl community is super welcoming. We have a guy in our local league who had been wanting to play for a long time, joined up, won the league,
Nice.
And every game he was learning more, and he sent out a letter to all of us at the end saying how much he appreciated the community that we had built. I've never met an asshole Blood Bowl player.
Yep.
And so, come on out, come to an event, play. build a team, and the guy that lost today won a brand new BattleTech boxed game. So even if you lose, you can win.
Yeah, I remember it. I believe it was one of the West Coast Quakes. There was a new tournament player that also got most touchdowns. So it's not unheard of to get some results.
Absolutely.
Lastly, you got any shout outs you want to give?
Just my boy Chris that I play every single Friday on Blood Bowl 3 from across the country.
Cool. Well, thanks.
All right.
I want to start off saying that Devin Morgan did a great job on this event, and everyone was smiling the entire time. For a first time especially, I don't think anyone noticed any hiccups, though we heard there were supposedly a couple minor ones after. In terms of my roster, I struggled with having 4 Tomb Guardians with guard, and block tossed on 1, but decided to shift a guard over to a blitzer that I originally had tackle on so I could have a strength 5 block mighty blow piece instead. That piece did some serious work. I've been putting an emphasis on getting my opponent to burn out their rerolls specifically. I might go into a vid about it, but it's some combination of positioning certain threats, annoying patterns, and a touch of mind games. That strategy paid off really hard today. The loss of tackle in my list was not felt in the slightest. 2 wrestles covered the role well enough, and I'll definitely debate on taking tackle in the future if I feel like the skill package seems a little bit tight. 2 of the coaches I faced tied for the most casualties, and regeneration was massive, as was Thick Skull. Sure Hands is always necessary on Tomb Kings, and it did its job well too. I don't think I would have played any of my matchups terribly differently, except maybe in my first game focusing on the werewolves a bit more, but I feel like that's more of a preference thing. Game 3 was insane and will go down as one of my favorite games of Blood Bowl I've ever played.
Well, folks, just came out of Vino Cup, walked away with the win. It was super fun. It was a good tournament, a good turnout, no repeated teams anywhere in the field. I will definitely be back next year. They're talking about making it a 2-day event. This was just a 1-day. But yeah, it was tons of fun. My brain's a little wiped out. I got to drive 4 hours back to Reno, so that's going to be fun. But no, overall, it was just a really good day of Blood Bowl.
On the way back, I treated myself to a hot chicken meal from Dave's Hot Chicken. Maybe it was the fact that I'd only eaten around 600 calories and it was already the evening, but the chicken and fries were so good. I got the spiciest one on the menu, which didn't really hit at all, but the tenders gave a satisfying crispy crunch when bitten into. The chicken was very moist, with the breading to meat ratio being spot on. The fries were crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, with a little bit of red pepper seasoning. Pickles and bread were included, but they don't deserve any of the spotlight in comparison. In closing, I just want to mention again, anyone that had anything to do with organizing the tournaments, it was super fun. Everybody else had fun with it for sure. I also want to say on a personal level, in the couple years I've been back playing, it's nice to see progress in my own game. When Chaos Cup rolls around, I really want to be on the radar for it, and in anticipation of that, I'll be dropping my hit list soon of players that I want to beat. If anyone's discouraged, if maybe you're new or maybe you aren't happy with your win rate, just practice, just play against good people, and just enjoy the game as you learn, and you'll get better. Also, don't start your turn with a big guy block because you'll probably get a turnover.